So today's video is about broker co-op commissions that are offered and the transparency of that information. So on the subject of broker commissions, what is offered from the seller through the listing agent to the agents who represent the buyer, I'm fortunate to have a guest here who knows all about this and has been instrumental in making some recent decisions that are important to us all. So David Fahrner, Corcoran Global Living.
Yeah.
We're in your office right now. What a beautiful place.
Thank you.
So welcome, David.
Yeah, Bernie, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Let me give a really brief outline of his history. It's quite intense, so we can't go through all the details. But I think you've been in the business for 25 years.
Correct.
And you've worked Marin County, you were even in management in Marin, and you do Sonoma County, and you do both counties still, obviously.
Right.
And you were the president of the Marin Association of Realtors.
Correct.
You've been a California director representing the North Bay Association of Realtors.
Correct.
You serve on a couple of committees there, and you have been on the board of our MLS, BAREIS, for how many years?
The past 4 years now.
4 years.
Yeah.
And you're vice president?
I'm co-chair. Yes,
Co-chair.
co-chair.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
So he comes with a lot of both field experience, but also leadership experience. So I'm very delighted to have you here today, Dave.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm glad to help out.
So on the subject of compensation, of broker co-op compensation offer, your board made our board, I'm a member, made a decision recently. I'd like you to cover that and just what is it, and then we'll go into the why that was made.
Okay. Recently, the board of directors for the Bay Area Real Estate Information Service, which is our MLS called BAREIS, allowed brokers to, on the public reports, show the broker co-op commission that a buyer's agent would receive, as well as allowing brokers to publish on their website and their IDX feed the compensation that a broker's agent will receive in a transaction.
Yeah, and associated with that is the decision that on the reports that agents can use, from the BAREIS itself without their own website, there have been confidential agent-to-agent reports. For example, the remarks about showing the home and stuff. Right. And with that, in that had always been the agent compensation, and it was never on the public reports. Now you're going to be putting them on the public reports.
That's correct. Both the agent reports and the public reports will show the broker co-op compensation.
So I imagine that met with a little bit of resistance, but there had to be a good reason why you did that.
Well, the reason is the Department of Justice and the current administration in Washington has made an effort, a broad-based effort, to look out for the interest of the consumer in many industries. And they want transparency so that the consumer understands how people are compensated and what they're paying. And the real estate industry is one of those industries that the DOJ is looking at to make sure that the consumer understands how agents are paid in a real estate transaction.
And they believe that making that information public will increase competition and lower the costs to the consumer.
Well, that's the hope, is that the consumer understands how we get paid, and there are different models in the marketplace today. The MLS is one model, and with the advent of technology and the internet, there are other models in the real estate industry that have come to the fore, and the way the compensation is structured is different. So the DOJ wants the consumer to understand how that compensation is handled.
And the MLS, I think, is the most important tool that I have as a realtor. I mean, it is central to our work.
Absolutely.
It's critical because, and it has been so for many, many years, even when I started and we had a little book every week that came out to show the listings that are on the market. But that has been picked at for a while by consumer groups and Department of Justice and regulators. For example, in the past there was a situation where almost all the MLSs were owned by realtor associations. And licensed brokers and licensed agents who wanted to do business had to become a realtor in order to get access to that data. And they said, no, that's anti-competitive. MLSs must allow every licensed broker to be a member and their agents to be members, and
Correct.
not require them to be realtors, as the Realtor Association would like it to be, and they provide a lot of service, and I'm a realtor and you're a realtor, but we had to make room for people who wanted to offer in a new way, maybe a lower commission, have a different model, and all of that is now being condoned. So I see this step as in that line of making it cheaper for consumers to buy and sell their house.
Right at the very beginning of the listing contract in California that we use, commissions are negotiable in the state of California. So the consumer has the right to negotiate with their broker, with their agent, the compensation they're willing to pay on a transaction. It is not fixed, and there is no group effort to hold commissions at a certain level. The consumer needs to understand they have the right to negotiate with their agent the compensation.
And we in the business don't have the right to collude, to have sort of a standard in the area or be discussing it. So we're loath to talk about numbers.
Right.
And we're warned about that at any MLS meeting, any realtor meeting. So it stays as something that it can be in public, a discussion, but not sort of a private discussion to keep prices high.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what's interesting now that we have this model where you can place your listing on the MLS, and then you have this broker co-op field, or also called offer of compensation to the selling office, where you put a percentage or a fixed amount, and that can now be as low as zero.
That's correct. MLS allows the compensation to be zero or a lower figure.
So that tends to put an agent into an awkward position, because we have both the legal responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to our client. So not showing that property that's offering zero would be a violation of that. And by the same token, we want to get paid for our services. We're willing to compete, but to work for nothing, that doesn't seem right. So that's kind of a bind that some of us may find ourselves into in the near future. But the fact that it's becoming a public field and the discussion, the transparency around it is important.
Agents in general have had, historically have had an issue around sitting down and explaining to their buyers how we're paid. And I've never had that problem. I sit down, and when I meet clients and I review the services that I provide and the guidance that I provide throughout the real estate transaction, I then also discuss with them how I am compensated, because many times the compensation comes from the listing side or from the seller. But in the event the seller is not offering compensation, then I need to have a conversation with my client, with my buyer, that they're going to have to pay me for my services. The addition of using a buyer-broker agreement will become part of the landscape. There are situations where if there's a for sale by owner, we have to, and if the house is not listed in the MLS per se, then the agent, and I have a buyer who's interested in that for sale by owner and they want my help, I will go to the seller, that particular seller who's offering the house themselves, and ask if they're going to pay a commission or a fee to me. And if they're not, then I need to have a discussion with my buyer that I want to be compensated if they want my representation through the transaction. So we're going to see.
Yeah.
There's going to be situations where we're going to have that conversation.
Well, it's a great example. And I think that when we enter into a buyer-broker agreement with a buyer in this market, it allows us to do other things. For example, we can advertise our buyers to people who aren't on the market right now, because when homes hit the market right now, there's multi-offer situations, prices get bid up, and sometimes it feels so disheartening to have bid and lost so many times. This is a good way to try a different strategy. So in summary here, I think this has been a great decision because it's inevitable. It's along the path of how we've been pushed all along to make things more transparent, more competitive in the marketplace, and allow more models to thrive.
Absolutely. There again, with the advent of technology and the internet, we're going to see people creating, and I hate to use the term, but it's a better mousetrap or a different mousetrap for how we conduct business. You've seen this across many industries, how the industry has fundamentally changed.
Well, I feel very lucky to have Dave be willing to come on Broker Bernie and give us the information both from his experience and leadership within our MLS. So thank you very much, Dave Fahrner. I really appreciate it. I think this is important for people to know, and I'm glad to be able to get it out on YouTube.
Well, Bernie, thank you so much. It's been great to be here. It is my pleasure to help inform the consumer. That's our job. Our job is to be of service